Welcome to the Inherent Identity Podcast, a place where you can learn the secrets to living as the best version of you. It's not about changing, it's not about becoming, it's about remembering. It's about recovering what you've always had within you, but you just keep getting distracted and you just keep forgetting. Join me, your host, Tyson Bradley, as we discover the practical steps for easily and effortlessly creating a lifestyle that lasts. Hello, everybody. This is Tyson Bradley, and you're listening to the Inherent Identity Podcast, where we are all about trying to recover and restore this heart of ours that has been lost, this identity that's always been there. And the more that we connect with it, the more that we actually experience the things that we want in life. And I've got a special guest here with me. Her name is Jamie Berman, and we knew each other from the life coach school. She was actually, I think I might call you like one of the star students because I was the entree track director. I was helping all these wonderful coaches build their businesses, and Jamie just kept showing up, and she kept showing up. She kept getting coached. And now she has a very successful business all about manifesting and other amazing things that she's going to share a little bit with us today. It's just going to come out in our conversation because it's part of who she is and what she loves doing. And so I'll let Jamie share a little bit more, maybe a little extra or anything that you think is important to share about you. And then we can dive into all the good questions.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I was cracking up as you said that because I remember back when we were in entree track and you were leading it and I was the one raising my hand every time, just so ambitious to learn everything I could. So funny. But yes, I'm Jamie Berman and I'm so happy to be here. This is going to be a super fun conversation. So I am a manifestation coach. I'm also a life coach, master certified through the life coach school. I have a background in spiritual psychology, so I bring that into my coaching, and I coach a lot around money and the beliefs that we carry about money, relationship with money, and dive into how to manifest more of it, really to create the lives that we want so that we can use it to fully express ourselves.
I love that. Now, if I remember correctly, when you were in the entree track, you were first focused on like weight loss.
Yeah. I was the PCOS coach. So I helped, women with PCOS lose weight. Yeah.
Tell me like about what happened in the transition? Like where did the transition occur? Did you go straight from this weight loss to manifesting money coach,
Yeah, good question. So like the way that we learned it was just pick a niche, right?
Yeah.
So I just kind of picked something from my mind. I thought this makes sense. It was kind of cool because it was while I was working on my relationship with food and my relationship with my body. And I thought, well, I'll just pick this as a niche because it'll motivate me to keep going. So I picked it and, I did the work myself. I created a successful business. I had a full client load. I ended up going to groups and it was successful, but it always felt like, not always, towards like, as I got into it a couple years in, and as I healed my relationship with food and my body, I just felt like this isn't something I identify with anymore. I don't even identify with myself as having PCOS. And I felt like there was so much of me missing within that niche. And it wasn't a simple transition. I went through master coach training, and that was basically what I was trying to figure out through that whole thing is how do I bring more of me? Because I was hiding so many elements of myself and not bringing them into my coaching business. Like the part of me that studied spiritual psychology and loves spirituality, and the part of me that loves manifestation and uses that for everything in my life. And I was realizing I kind of put that stuff like, oh, I'll use that everywhere else. But in my business, it's serious. It's like, I got to just follow the steps. So I did, but I just never felt fully like grounded in it. I never felt
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is me. This is so much fun. It was like there was a piece of it that was, I loved helping people. I loved coaching, but it was definitely a journey to, I felt like it was like coming out of the spiritual closet or something like that. Like it felt scary, but then it finally got to a point where I was like, I just can't hide this anymore. And I just took the leap, changed my niche, which everyone tells you
Yeah.
not to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, well,
Right.
bye, niche,
Yep.
switched it. But the crazy thing, I thought it was going to be like starting over. And, I was willing to do it. But when I finally started honoring myself and being more true to myself and just more authentic in my business, I changed my niche and I filled my practice literally in a month with my new niche. So like I became more successful.
Yeah.
It's changing it,
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you mentioned that when you were even in the midst of your master coach training, that the much of that process was trying to discover more of you
Yeah.
or just like bring that out more. What was that experience like? And if we could, it's like, how do you do that? It's something that people don't really teach, right? It's just like, okay, how do you start, besides taking a personality test or whatever, or just asking a question of who am I? It's like, what did that experience look like for you?
Yeah, I would say it was more of a journey. It took, I mean, and I'm still on it. I don't know if we ever stop
Right.
that journey, right?
Right.
It takes a lot of courage. But for me, I think it was just, first of all, the first step was the clarification of this isn't actually what I want. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Right? Like the business that I had, it was good. It felt like it was good as it was successful, which also made me question, like, am I just doing this for, like, is this even the right solution? Like, it's successful. Why would you change it?
Mm-hmm.
But the first step was just kind of honoring the part of me that felt like it didn't quite feel like me, and it didn't quite feel like something I wanted to continue. It felt like it had its season, and that season was coming to completion. And it was sitting in the unknown, because for me, all I knew was this just doesn't feel right anymore. But I didn't know what did feel right. Right.
Yeah.
So that was scary. And I remember getting coached on that. And my thought just that I kept coming back to was, I'll know when I know. I'll know when I know. Right. It was like, I don't have to know what it is now. And I still served my clients within that niche, just kept going and I just kept trusting that something new was unfolding. I just didn't know what it was yet. So I sat with that for months, probably 6 months of I'll know when I know, and just trusting that. And then it just came to a point where it was like, I'm just going to lean into this other thing. I don't know if that's fully what it is. I'm going to let it be kind of general. So at first it's kind of started out with, I'm just a coach for coaches. Right. And then the niche kind of just found me eventually. Right. And it was like, oh, now, like, I didn't have to figure it out from my mind. I just really had to surrender. And then when the next step unfolded, it would be like, okay, it's time to change. Like, let's just go general, and knowing that that was enough. So it was kind of like a one step at a time process. And I think that's how any transition is, really. But our brains are just so uncomfortable in the uncertainty and not having an exact clear path and knowing exactly what it'll look like. But when we can learn how to be in that, magic happens.
I love that. There's something else that you mentioned with the transition, or just like in your experience of being a PCOS weight coach, that you stopped identifying, like over time, you worked on it enough that it's like you stopped identifying as even having that.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was that like?
Yes. Well, I think so much of my life had been consumed with thinking about my body and thinking about my weight and thinking about food and thinking about the diet that I was on. And it was so consuming. And the more that I did the work in coaching around that, Slowly but surely, of course, I started, healing my relationship with food and learning how to not emotionally eat and all of that stuff. But I knew the final layer in order to heal the PCOS was to stop identifying as the girl and the victim who has PCOS. And for, those of you that it's a hormonal disorder that can cause weight gain. So I used to always blame my body on having PCOS. And so I knew that final step was I have to stop thinking of myself as someone who has PCOS and stop thinking about that all the time and just let go of that as an identity. So that's where I found as I did that work, I didn't want to keep coming back to it over and over. Right. And like go back into my story and write about it and write copy about it. I felt like this is healed within me. And it just felt like the business was complete. It felt like the business really helped me in an amazing way. But it was like, it was just meant to be a season. It was never meant to keep going on forever for me.
Did you find that in like, because you said it was like this last piece of, I've been doing all the things to address the symptoms of this thing, but I'm still identifying as it.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of your health and the shift that occurred once you started changing that and you just no longer identify, what happened in there? I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say a lot happened because I had already been on the journey to heal it. But I think it's just energetically something happened where I just stopped caring so much. I stopped caring about what my body looks like at any given time or what my weight was and that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like diabetes, right? You can go and you can manage it. So of course I still have to manage it, but I just don't identify with it anymore. I'm like, this is what it is. This is my curriculum. This is what I came here with. It's totally fine. Yeah. And I don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Okay.
This is what it is. I let go of like it being kind of a victim identity.
Yeah.
And now,
because I see the similarity with things like allergies.
Yeah.
Because like it's something that the body does, and we can even get tested for.
Yep.
Like in our blood or whatever, and someone can tell us, okay, you have this.
Yeah.
And for some people, like knowing that they have a condition, like serves them, it can be helpful. But for me to say I am allergic to dogs and to cats and to horses and to like all this stuff, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
So it's like the moment that I stopped thinking about that and I don't even identify as having allergies or whatever, it's just that, okay, when I sneeze, it's like I sneeze.
Yes.
That's it. That's all that happened. It was like, oh, I gained a pound or whatever. I don't know what the experience like.
Like, oh yeah, I'm a human.
Yeah. And just I think it just loses all the meaning behind it because we've created this label and now identify as it, and it impacts so much of what we do and how we interact.
Did you notice your allergies getting better, or do you feel like it's the same, but you just don't identify?
Well, that's the thing. I noticed that they're better.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't experience as much of them. And that's kind of what I was curious about for you is like, okay, do you not experience as much of the symptoms because you have let go of that even being a thing in your life? You're just like, oh, it's like, yeah, I have this discomfort in my stomach or whatever.
No, 100%. Yeah. I mean, if I go to a doctor, they would never know. They would never be able to test and see anything. So 100% it's gone.
See, and that, I mean, I know that there are books that I've read, people that have had like miraculous healings and things like that. And this is kind of where you get into just like, oh yeah, what if you could actually heal your body and your cells and change even like the DNA or whatever, where you no longer, I could get tested for my blood again or whatever, and they would not find the allergies. See, that's what I'm fascinated in. It's just like, what if that is possible? And if it is, then why not?
Totally, 100%. I mean, what we focus on grows. So it's kind of like I've been listening to podcasts on pain management just because I'm
Hmm.
so fascinated by how the brain can actually help to reduce pain and different things, right? And it's like, it's so interesting how when you focus on pain or allergies or PCOS or weight or money, whatever it is, whatever your quote unquote problem is, it grows. Literally, that's what's happening in the brain and in your biology. It's amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So it's funny because you mentioning that I have this pain,
Mhm.
like it's like my hip joint, like
Yeah.
the joint between my hip and my leg.
Yeah.
And so I notice it more like maybe it's just from sitting down a bunch or whatnot, not doing as much stretching or whatever. Regardless, there's this pain. And so I don't know if for you, besides just, okay, stop focusing on it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's other things that's like, okay, pain management is like, what do you do? How do you address these pains, or how do you address the incessant attention that your brain wants to give to things?
Yes. Yes. And I'm not an expert on this,
I know.
but
Let's
right?
just talk through it. We'll
I know.
become
I mean,
experts.
100%. I mean, I think it's this so similar to what you were talking about with allergies, where of course the body is going to have things, but I think it's when we start to, which, it's very common to do. We feel a pain or we feel something in our body and we start to freak out about it. We start to worry
Mhm.
about it. Then we start to go down a story of what is this? What could it be? And then that just creates more emotion in the body, more stress, which doesn't
Yeah.
help it. Right. So, for me, I have hives right now, and I've been like, that's why I've been listening to these podcasts on pain because I'm like, I'm
Huh.
so fat. Like, I'm excited to dive into this and like, I'm feeling it on my body. It's been something I've had. It's just like a couple months now. I've been getting hives, and I'm like, oh, what would it be like to kind of like just not make this a problem? So
Hmm.
I think that's it. It's not like I'm not trying to address it. I mean, I'm seeing a functional nutritionist and trying to
Right.
figure out if I have, an allergy or something, but I'm just not making it a problem. It's like,
Right.
okay, human body,
Yep.
it's doing something. I'm not stressing out about it.
Right. And I've heard things too that a lot of our physical pains
Yeah.
um, almost are just representations of inner pains that
Yeah.
maybe we haven't addressed. So,
Yep.
so I've heard that, and it kind of makes you wonder. It's like, yeah, maybe what is going on
I
that
know.
I haven't addressed.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know,
Maybe a time for a little emotional release or something like that, right?
something's going on. We got to figure it out. All right. So, okay, when you are helping your clients with money,
Yeah.
because that's kind of where maybe a lot of your focus goes right now.
Yeah.
Besides uh focusing on money, because I think a lot of people, one, just don't want to focus on money. They think that focusing on money is, I don't know, not cool, not spiritually aligned, not
Yeah.
of
Totally.
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's all those things,
Oh, lots of thoughts about it for sure.
lots of
Yeah.
thoughts about that.
Mhm.
But besides, focusing on it, and it's like, what would you say is your personal belief about money that
Yeah.
allows you to show up to it differently than other people?
Yeah. So in terms of my belief about creating money, it's and wanting money and desiring money, for me, I like to kind of try and separate and notice, is this coming from ego or is this like a soulful desire? And when
Hmm.
I say soulful desire, like I do this whole practice where, and I have my clients do this, where we go to the us at the end of our life on our
Yeah.
deathbed. I know that sounds crazy, but on our deathbed, and we look back at our life like, what do I most want to experience in this lifetime? What would be
Hmm.
so much fun to do? What do I want to give? What do I want to, have? What do I want to see in the world? And how much money do I need in order to create that life? And that's how I look at it. Is it's just money is just a way for me to experience more of life. So I really try. I mean, I notice, of course, the brain can go to like, oh, I want to make this amount so that I can get on stage or I can do this. And that's ego. And that never feels good. And that actually never produces a good result for me whenever I'm doing it from, just like this egoic, I think I need to do it in order to look a certain way or whatever it is. Right. I mean, there's so much conditioning there. So I have to notice, where is it coming from? And whenever it's coming from a soulful place of like, ooh, this is what I desire because I want to create this, or I want to have this, or I want to have this impact.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to manifest for me.
How do you experience the difference between a soulful desire and the ego, or the brain just conditioning? What does that feel like for you?
So the way that I check in is in my body. I notice, because I almost think of it like, if we think of the model, I'll put the thought or the desire in the T line, and ooh, how does that feel? Does it feel opened or closed? So I will list out some whys. And if it does, I can just tell now. I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel good. Like there's some, if that's closed, it feels tight. It feels like pressure. If I feel anxious or feel like I need to get it really fast, I'm like, yeah, that's probably not a soulful desire, because soulful desires just feel more expansive and kind of juicy and fun and like exciting. They feel scary, but exciting.
Now, would you say that there's a difference between the experience, say you think about making millions of dollars, and that is exciting. But I think that sometimes I don't know if you see things being like, okay, it's too far into the exciting realm and just like this pipe dream. And is it really connected to the heart, or is it like just something that you think you need to create? And I don't know. Are there any ways in which we might be tricking ourselves?
I mean, for me, if I'm excited, I go for it. Like that's like a fun emotion for me. For me, it's also, I notice, how am I approaching it? So if, for example, if it's exciting and I start going after it in a way that feels good and feels alive, that's amazing for me.
Yeah.
I just don't like to approach it from almost like, oh, it's so exciting, now I need to go do all these things and burn myself out and kill myself to get there, right? That's when it's kind of like, how are you being in the pursuit of that? That also kind of shows you.
Right.
Yeah. And like when you're in a rush, it feels like you have to do it by this amount of time. That's kind of fine for me. Like, that's really not the best way that I work. So that's for me, but I think it's different for everyone.
Yeah. And well, something to that is, I think that at least by paying attention and asking the question, like, does this feel open? Is this open or closed? Is this sparking joy, or is it like dimming my light? Other ways of kind of discerning between that difference. At least if you just start moving in the direction of what you feel good towards, you'll start to know. And because either you're going to start on the journey and something feels off, and it's either in the how that you're doing it, or maybe there's some clarification that needs to happen within the vision and where you're headed. So would you agree?
Totally agree. Yeah.
Okay. So I love what you said concerning just going to the end of your life and seeing about what experiences that you could have and what would just be enjoyable and fun and lovely. And I think that so often it's like the conditioning that comes up for people and all the shoulds. And I just feel like what the world would have us believe is that we all need a mansion, and we all need to drive the most amazing cars, and that we all need to be on the stage, like in front of everybody,
right?
As the example.
Famous.
And yet, and yet, I think taking that long view and looking back is that part of the story. And so, okay, so you do this. So let's say that we map this out, and I don't know if you like to create any like vision board or,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
are you all about the vision board?
I am. They
Okay.
work.
Okay.
I know they're
Awesome.
old school, but they worked.
Awesome. So you create this vision board of just like all the things you want to experience in life, and then what?
Yeah.
And then it's just believing.
Yeah. Well, it's that's a key factor, right?
It is.
It's taking courageous action. It's move it just one step at a time. And I think the biggest thing, kind of like we were talking about before, was also being willing to sit in the uncertainty, not having to know how it's going to all unfold, but trusting that it will.
Yeah.
And I always say this or something even better for the highest good of all concerned.
Right.
Because we can't even possibly know everything we're going to experience or what it's going to look like. We can have an idea of what we want to call in. But I mean, growing up, I would have never said I want to be a life coach. I didn't even know what a life coach was.
Yeah.
Right. So this or something even better, I think really helps with that. But yeah, I think sitting in some of when it comes to manifestation, I think it's a lot more about letting go than it is. Of course, we have to believe new things, but we also just have to let go of like we were talking about, the thoughts and the beliefs that aren't aligned with it, that aren't serving us, that we took on from childhood, but aren't really aligned with who we want to be and who we really are. So I always say manifestation is a letting go process.
Yeah.
Of who we aren't.
When you do you incorporate like identity into this? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah, totally. So if you think about what you want to manifest or what you want to call in or create or whatever you call it, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever goal you have.
Yeah.
The way that I work with identity is think about what identity am I going to have to let go of in order to create this, starting there. Kind of like we were just talking about with PCOS, I have to let go of the identity of being someone who struggles with their weight and has PCOS and all of these things. And then start there of like just realizing all of the identities that you hold and that you're hanging on to, and just the willingness to question them and start like letting go of them. And then thinking, well, how do I want to think about myself on purpose?
Right.
Right.
Do you differentiate identity? Like, is it separate from thoughts, or is just identity is just a thought of who you are?
Yeah, I think that's how I think about it. It's how we think about ourselves.
Right.
Because I think our natural state of being is just love, abundance. That's who we really are. But then we're not able to access that if we think about ourselves. So whenever I'm referring to identity, it's how we're thinking about ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times when I think about identity, it always starts with I am what.
Yep.
It's like, what are you?
Yes.
And how do you describe your experience? So let's say, if I am wanting more abundance, more money in my life, and I might start out, okay, I have the experiences of where I want to go and the money, I know how much money that would require. And my old identity just probably says, it's like, I am not someone who has that.
Yeah, right.
It's like at a very, very simplistic level. It's like, I am someone who doesn't make that much money every month.
Yes. And there's probably more. So I would even like, for someone who wants to create more money, I would look at even more, how do I think about myself with money? What do I think my experience is? So a lot of times when you're struggling to make money, you identify as someone who struggles with money. Maybe you identify as someone who's not organized with money, someone who's bad with money. You might even, another one is, how do you think about money? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's wrong? Do you think it's only for greedy people or right? Like you have to look at that as well.
Right.
But looking at how do you identify what are all the thoughts that you believe about yourself with money? It's harder for me to make money. It's slow for me. Anything like that,
Yeah.
taking a look at those and starting to question those and notice that, yes, even though you might have so much evidence built up that that is true, the reason you have the evidence is because that's what you've been believing. Because what
Yeah.
we most often believe is what we create for ourselves. And it's the only thing that we are able to really see and experience. So that's step one, is noticing like what are some of those identities that I could let go of, that I would be willing. So for me, it was letting go of the identity of I used to think only smart people have money and I'm not smart, right? So like,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
first one was like, okay, well, number one, like, what do I even think smart people is? Like, that's coming from second grade, right?
Yeah.
Like a
Right.
definition, or my ACT or SAT score, right? So I'm thinking like, okay, is it even true that you have to get a high SAT score in order to make tons of money? Is there evidence of the opposite, right? And starting to
Right.
kind of break up with that belief. And then number two is like questioning the thought I'm not smart, just because I was identifying it in that very limiting way of like,
Right.
my second grade self or my 18-year-old self.
Right.
And starting to question like, could it be a different way? First of all, maybe I am smart, but maybe it's in a different way. And maybe someone like me could make money.
Right.
Yeah.
I do see how, especially when it comes to money, a lot of our beliefs come from what we were raised in,
Mm-hmm.
and what our parents taught us, whether it was deliberately or just through their example,
Yeah.
what we saw and how they spoke and talked about money. And, just knowing that that is like a lot of where your beliefs come from, I think is helpful. That way we can just say, okay, like, listen, you have been conditioned to believe a certain way about money, and
Yeah.
it's not even your fault.
Yes, exactly.
And now that we know it's not even your fault that you believe these things about money, to me, I just think if I were to go to inherent identity realm, then really what that means for me is God is abundant. And not just abundant, he's like super abundant.
Yes.
Plenty and to spare. And if we're made in his image and likeness, then what's more true about us than whatever the world has taught us, whatever our parents taught us, is that that's who we really are.
Yes.
And that the ability or the value, the energy of money, the relationship that we have with it, it's like God loves money.
Yeah.
God is love.
Totally.
That's everything that he is. And so it's just like, okay, I am love, and I am one. It's like I'm one with money, and we can have this amazing relationship, and to be able to change that narrative. And then is it just about then following the ideas and the promptings that would create the money and would improve that relationship? Or
Yeah, good question. I mean, I don't think it's for me, it hasn't been a one approach. It's been
Yeah.
a combination of things. So
Yeah.
for me, it was working on self-worth, and like
Interesting.
believing that I was like valuable and worthy
Yeah.
of having money and making money. So that was a huge piece of it. Also, just looking at how I think about money and my relationship with money.
Yeah.
That's been huge. And then like also I think it's just money is just an effect. The cause of money is you giving your gifts to the world. So right, I that's how I see it. It's us getting out there, serving, helping, giving our gifts, and the effect will come, right?
Yeah.
So if we focus more on the cause, so for me, it's like letting go of focusing. I'll set a money goal and everything, but stop focusing so much on getting the money and more focusing on how can I serve? How can I show up today? How can I share my gifts?
Yeah.
How can I follow the inspiration? How can I get out of my own way? Because people need help out there,
Yeah.
So that's been a big one for me too.
Have you struggled with, because for me, something that I find shows up um, is just this idea of like a this for that type
Mm,
of mentality
yeah.
where it's like I want to serve and I want to connect with people. And there's all these strategies of just like, yeah, like connect with influencers or whatever. And then, but there's like this underlying, but what I want from them is this, that
Yes.
I'm doing this for that. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Totally. And I
So,
think there's always going to be like a little bit of that. Like, yes, I'm doing this for that reason. Oftentimes, it's not always like everything we do is just lighting us up 24/7. But I think if we
yeah,
just follow the inspiration, uh,
yeah,
and really, I mean, it's totally fine if our brain does that. We still have a brain, we still have an ego. But I think it's just like setting the intention of like, okay, let me get into service consciousness. Let me show
right,
up and serve here,
right.
um, and also be open to receiving.
Hmm. Can you explain more about that, the openness to
Yeah.
receiving? Because I think that that's a big thing that people face.
Yeah, I think exactly. A lot of people feel like, well, I'm really good at giving, but I'm not good at receiving. But
Yeah.
the truth is, there's a universal law of giving and receiving, and you can only give that which you are willing to receive. It's like a circle, right?
Hmm.
So you're going to be able to give more if you open up to receiving more. So for people who are afraid of charging or have thoughts about their prices,
Sure.
what that's going to do is it's actually going to get in the way of you being able to serve more, to give more, to have greater impact. So there's just an opportunity to look at what the beliefs are that are in the way of you letting yourself receive money or
Yeah.
charge the price that you really want to charge for your services or ask
Right.
for the raise.
Right. Yeah. Now, how do you incorporate like spiritual psychology? I don't like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Right?
Was that a degree?
It used to be, and then whenever I took it, it was no longer a degree, but I did 2 years in it.
Okay.
It was
So,
intense. It was amazing.
you know, I don't know what like the schooling education is around that, but
Yeah.
what goes into that and how does that apply with everything that you share?
Totally. So I took 2 years. The first year was called Soul-Centered Living, and it was a full year program where every month we would have basically like an in-person retreat for an entire weekend.
Uh-huh.
And it was just deep inner work. We'll just put it that way. It's a lot of healing, doing a
Yeah.
lot of, inner child work, but also
Mm.
bringing in a lot of the different like manifestation practices that I use and learning how to work with your mind and everything like that. I know it sounds like hard to describe, but it was really learning how to get in touch with your most authentic self and
Yeah.
how to trust your intuition, how to listen to your intuition and tune into it. So that was year one. And then year two, I did consciousness, health, and healing,
Hmm.
which was all about kind of like what we were talking about of just the mind, body, soul, spirit connection for healing.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. And is there something, maybe, is there a daily practice that you find most helpful in either maintaining that connection or just connecting in general?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's just I don't specifically have one practice because
Yeah.
I jump around different practices, whatever I'm feeling. But I
Yeah.
would say the practice in and of itself is having the time to devote
Hmm.
to yourself, to God, like having that hour in the morning. And
Yeah.
for me, that hour looks different, but it's always sitting. And I mean, I meditate every single day. But the practices that I use, sometimes it's journaling, sometimes it's doing manifestation practices, or just even writing out my intentions. It's
Yeah.
just remembering, for me, it's just a remembering that I'm not in this alone, that I have this unseen team that is also here to work on my behalf. And like I can lean on that for support. Like,
Yeah.
don't forget you're not alone here. Like you don't have to like force this. There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
So I give myself like an hour to connect there. And sometimes it's reading. Yeah.
Yep. So I just want to make mention to everybody listening. It's like Jamie does not have any association with anything that I teach.
Yes.
To be honest, like I don't think Jamie's listened to a single one of my podcasts, which is kind of rude, but it's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay, dude. But like I only say that because like the things that you're saying just like confirm what I share. And
Yeah.
you're coming from a totally separate experience, totally separate religion, totally separate everything.
Yeah.
And it's like the one commonality that we have is that we just have this knowledge that yes, our thoughts do create our feelings, and our feelings drive our actions create results. And so it's like we have that commonality. But one thing that you just said that I loved is just you have a practice of remembering.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I have as well. And that I think is pivotal because I think that most of all our problems occur simply because we forget.
Yeah.
And so, for you to say that and I'm just like, yes, that's it. It's like, can we remember? Can we connect? Can we start having these conversations and dedicating time to actually seeing who we really are and remembering that?
Yes, that's
So,
it.
Is there a specific even like meditation? Because it sounds like that's a constant.
Mm-hmm.
Is your meditation simply the uh, just being present with your breath, or do you like to do guided meditations? Just
Yeah, I mean, I'll do just 10 minutes of silence to just that was something that I wanted to teach myself to learn to be in stillness. But I
yeah,
actually learned meditation from Locke Kelly, who's an amazing meditation teacher. And his work really resonated with me because I had tried meditating for years and I felt like I just couldn't get out of my mind. And
yeah,
his work really helped me learn how to kind of, he calls it unhook from your mind and
yeah,
like move outward into space and kind of just be in that space and that stillness for 10 minutes. So that's the practice that I do. But I
yeah.
also really love EFT tapping.
Oh, okay,
So that's not
yeah,
meditation, but I'll do a guided tapping. I do those often. I love it.
yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I think that for some people, like I think that listening is a skill. Like listening to this soul, this heart of ours is a skill to develop.
Yeah.
And at least for me, when I first started meditating, I've gone on and off with the practice. Right now, I don't so much have a formal meditation practice, but I feel like what it did for me was it did allow me to slow down and to, I guess, increase my my trigger to reaction time.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, it's like, okay, something might come up, but I'm able to watch myself
Yes.
with greater ease and with more ability. And so that's how I might describe it. I don't know for you what it sounds like it helps with, your ability to connect with the body, get out of the mind, unhook from the
Yeah.
mind. I really like
Yeah.
that. So
Yes, totally. And I try to do it throughout the day as well, just to come, it's like a remembering practice.
right.
Just like you said, it's a remembering who I really am, not,
And
and
do you have any like practice of setting intentions even before you get into just different activities throughout the day or
yeah, I
okay.
totally do. I loved seeing the end before it happens. I do that
Okay.
all the time. So
Yeah.
even for this podcast, like I visualize myself going down to my husband being like, that was so fun, right? So
Yeah.
like
Okay.
I see the end and like feel that ahead of time
Yeah.
all the time.
Yes. Okay. So that is something that I feel as is becoming more of a habit of mine as well, is just this constant intentionality. It's just like this constant, it's like, okay, yeah, how do I want to show up in this next phase?
Yeah.
Who do I want to be in this next thing? And also going to the end and just envisioning how awesome it'd be
Yeah.
for that experience to be amazing.
There is something magic that happens with that. I mean, that's one of the practices that I do often. And I teach that practice is I
Yeah.
call it becoming an energetic match, because you start to actually feel it ahead of time. You can
Right.
feel what it's like. And I feel like the more I do that, the more I'm guided there.
Yes. Well, I guess what that says to me, because there is the long view, right? Of going to the end of your life and kind of getting in this energetic match of the experiences that you want to have and the life and the who you want to be at the end.
Yeah.
And then there's the day to day
Yeah.
of, okay, you know, as I envision the end of this day is like, how do I want to show up in the different areas?
Yeah.
And what would be ideal? What would be amazing if I could end this day and look back and just like, what happened in this
Yes.
experience?
Yes.
And so the thing that I want to highlight though is just this idea of the envisioning something of an experience of a day that is exciting and that feels amazing to you. That connection is a stepping into your inherent identity. Like that practice is of getting into an energetic match.
Yep. Yep.
Like your inherent identity, like the part of you that has always existed longer than you've been alive and before you even got this body of yours, is like it knows what would be an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And if we're just willing to sit long enough to think about it, or like to at least engage, because I think the brain needs to start the process sometimes, and then we can allow ourselves to get into the heart and actually feel the experience. But so powerful to be able to focus on that, to practice that, have it be a daily thing.
It's it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
so weird how it unfolds. I remember when my husband was really skeptical about manifestation, or these practices.
Yeah.
And we started doing this together. And then he was like, what? That happened exactly like we talked about and exactly like we described it. And yeah, so it's amazing how, that's what it is. It's setting intentions. And that's just so powerful.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jamie, if is there anything else that you feel is important or that you feel would be good to share before we end this call?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is letting yourself actually have or go for what you really, really want. I think a lot of people, and I mean, I've done this in my life too, want something, but then they let their brain shut it down. Oh, I can't have it. It's going to be too hard or anything like that. Right. So I just really, really encourage everyone to get into desire a little bit more of like, what do I want? And being willing to really like go there. Like, what is my dream life? What would that be? And to know that you don't have to know how it's going to happen in order for it to happen.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just spending more time in that and like reflecting on what you really want.
Thanks for sharing that, because a lot of, something that I have shared before is to be able to walk through life with this lens of what do I like and what do I not like? What brings joy and what doesn't? What lights me up and what doesn't? What creates, not a good fun experience, and just having that lens though allows you to start to have desires. Let's just start to see what you really desire, because otherwise we just go about the habitual. And you don't get to see what lights you up.
Yeah, I know.
So good. Okay. So if people want like make more money and stuff, then I think Jamie has some cool insights. I want to follow her. How do they do that?
Yeah, I'm at Jamie Berman _ on Instagram. My website's jamieberman.com. You can find me anywhere at Jamie Berman and come say hi. I love the people.
Yeah. So good. Okay. And there will be links within the description, show notes, whatnot. So if you want to connect with Jamie, then do so, because she's just an amazing human and I love her in that way. And so that's it, everybody. That's it.
Go manifest.
Go manifest. Thanks for coming on, Jamie.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, do you want to create your best life? Do you want to live into it? If that's you, I want you to come and check out inherentidentity.com. This is the place where you get to learn the easy and effortless way to living into your dreams. So once again, come check out inherentidentity.com. We'll see you there.